If this one route gets blocked for even a week, the impact won't stay in one region. The global economy will not just slow down, it will lose billions. The route we are talking about is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow stretch of water between Iran and Oman. And in 2026, the world saw exactly why disruptions here can send shockwaves across the global economy. Historically, Hormuz has faced crisis. During the 1980s, Iran-Iraq tanker war, ships were attacked, insurance costs rose, and all markets panicked. The route was never fully closed. But in 2026, after US-Israeli strikes on Iran, Tehran effectively closed the route. Traffic dropped sharply, ships got stuck, oil flows were disrupted, and the global economy felt the pressure. So let's understand how this tiny route controls the entire global economy. It starts with oil. Every day, nearly 15 million barrels of crude oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, making it one of the world's most important energy corridors. The moment traffic through Hormuz is disrupted, a chain reaction begins. Oil tankers face delays, refineries start worrying about supply, traders react to the uncertainty, and oil prices begin climbing, often before any actual shortage is felt. Because oil is traded in a global market. A 2026 risk estimate said a closure for the Strait of Hormuz could put up to $2.2 trillion in global GDP at risk, with Gulf oil and gas exports losing around $745 million in revenue every day. That is because oil is not just used in cars. It moves trucks, ships, aircrafts, factories, plastics, packaging, medicines, fertilizers, logistics, food supply chains, and much more. So when Hormuz closes, the cost does not stop at petrol pumps. It hits every bill, and inflation returns like a shockwave. Then comes the second hit, LNG. LNG also moves through Hormuz, and that directly impacts electricity generation, manufacturing, and global energy prices. In 2025, over 110 billion cubic meters of LNG passed through the Strait of Hormuz. Around 93% of Qatar's LNG exports and 96% of UAE's LNG exports use this route, making up almost 1/5 of global LNG trade. And most of this gas goes to Asia. Almost 90% of LNG exported through Hormuz in 2025 went to Asian markets, while just over 10% went to Europe. Hormuz-linked LNG made up around 27% of Asia's total LNG imports. So, if Hormuz closes, gas supply tightens, power generation becomes costlier, and electricity prices rise. And together, this can turn an LNG supply shock into a wider global economic crisis. And then comes AI. AI may feel digital, but it ultimately depends on steady supply of electricity. It will eventually hit Nvidia supply chains, semiconductor hubs in Taiwan and South Korea, cloud giants like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, telecom networks, data center operators, and every AI company that depends on cheap, stable power. Hormuz threatens the digital economy too. And after AI, the next shock hits food. Because Hormuz does not just carry energy, it also carries fertilizers and raw materials that help grow the world's food. Up to 30% of the global fertilizer trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That includes major fertilizer exports from the Persian Gulf, such as urea, ammonia, and phosphate fertilizers. So if Hormuz slows down, the farmers pay more. The crop production becomes costlier. Then food prices climb. So we can conclude that the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most dangerous choke points in the world. And if it stops, the world does not simply lose a shipping route. It loses trillions. It loses stability in the system that keeps energy, trade, food, technology, and money moving. That is why the biggest names in global power watch it closely. The White House watches it because oil prices can shake inflation and elections. Xi Jinping watches it because China's factories depend on Gulf energy. Narendra Modi watches it because India's fuel prices, inflation, and rupee can get hit. Tokyo and Seoul watches because Japan and South Korea need LNG for electricity. Wall Street watches it because oil shocks can move stocks, currencies, and recession fears. Silicon Valley watches it because AI data centers need stable and affordable power. Because if this route ever truly stops flowing, the crisis would not stay in the Middle East. It would spread through the entire global economy within hours. Comment below. Do you think the world has become too dependent on fragile choke points like the Strait of Hormuz?